Hi, everyone, and welcome to Software Success. I'm Ashley Jones from Dime by OESD, and always excited to be here with you and share my love of software with all of you. So, if you're new to Software Success, that is all we talk about whenever we are on live for Software Success is anything related to our Dime embroidery software. So I love to show you things that I use mine for every single day. I also love to kind of stretch the limits and show some things that maybe you would only use once every now and again, but hey, we're all different and we use our software in so many different ways. But I really do believe it's my number one tool in my sewing and embroidery studio that I can do so many different things with. It can help me with the designing, it can help me with planning. Also, it can help me with preventing mistakes. It's just so many different things. I can edit my designs, I can create custom designs. And so I just use it in a ton of different ways. So, and I think a lot of you guys have seen that as well. So, and of course, today we have a fun topic I'll share with you in just a bit. So we'll give a few more minutes for others to join in. And we'll say hi to some of our people that are already here today visiting us. So hi, Elaine, thanks for being here from Bell Vernon, Pennsylvania. Joyce, thanks for being here from Cape Coral, Florida. It's nice and hot down here in Florida, isn't it, Joyce? So Aurora, Illinois, thanks for being here, Suzanne. So we have lots of our educators too in Illinois area. So hello from Dallas, Linda Johnson. Thanks for being here. Always good to see you. Mickey Smith, I know you use your software a ton. Hello from Topeka. Barb, thanks for being here from Michigan. And Jen's Sewing Room, thanks for being here from Murphy, Texas. Eileen, thanks for being here from cloudy Maryland. We sure could use some clouds down here. And then we got cloudy Alabama too. Thanks for being here, Shirley. Janice from South Carolina. Pam from Michigan. Marianne, thanks for joining. Always good to see you from Ohio. We have Dawn. Caroline Booth, thanks for being here. Carolyn McPherson, Callie Hernandez, thanks for being here. Dawn from Creative Applications, you guys know Dawn. And Reen from Embroidery Gardens, thanks for being here. She says it's hot and dry in Indiana, so that's nice as well. So Barbara Jones, thanks for being here. Barbara, Punta Gorda, Florida, so not too far from me as well. So Tammy, you guys know Tammy, part of our education team. Thanks for being here. I always love it when I can teach Tammy something new. So hopefully today I can do that as well. So Cindy, thanks for being here. And so lots of people joining. I think maybe this topic, maybe, my friend Roz from Washington State. Thanks for being here, Roz. I think the this topic, fonts, because there's so many people that do so much with fonts. I really feel like it's the number one thing. And so maybe it was a nice topic to attract some tons of viewers. So my friend Stephanie, thanks for being here. She's in sunny Tennessee, she says. So glad everybody could join today. So Trisha, thanks for being here. And April, Jan, thanks for being here. April is not a new educator, but new to the Dime virtual world. So glad to have her as well. You guys have probably seen her on our events also. Okay, so today what we're going to be talking about is font fundamentals. So there's tons of ways that you can use fonts in your embroidery software from Dime. And today I'm going to try to cover as many as possible in the time that we have. So I'm going to talk about font files, like those fonts that you purchase from, say, your favorite design company versus built-in fonts. And we're going to talk about the difference, but how to use both, especially if you're new to our software, we'll cover both of them. But then also we had some user requests about fonts. So I was going to try to cover these topics that was actually a request in our chat. So I was trying to make sure to cover as well about if you're purchasing fonts, how to make them a keyboard font. So how can we use them if they're not a keyboard font? And then if we want to, and we have the appropriate tools, how do we turn font files into keyboard fonts. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then also I was going to just slide in there TrueType fonts because we had a question just this past week that was a really great question about a font that's only in our Word Art and Stitches. And so I gave that person an example of how they could do something similar to duplicate, but they could create their own custom fonts using a TrueType font with a fill. And so we're going to talk about that as well. So I just thought it was a cool little demo, something that turned out really adorable. And if I ever create something that I'm really excited about, I love to share it with all of you because it might be something that either you would want to do, but then also once you see it, I think sometimes it opens up our mind with all these tons of different things that we can do with our software. And that was one of them. So, and when I get really excited about something, I always love to share it. So, okay, so fonts, and more fonts. There's so many different ways to use fonts in our embroidery toolshed software. So we're going to talk about built-in fonts, and in your font properties, that's usually the fonts that show up here in this yellow color, but may also be red or purple depending on where the font file lives and which software it's from. But your built-in fonts, I'm going to just kind of go over like an overview again of how to use them and how to manipulate them and what different things that, you could do. But I also want to talk about using TrueType fonts as well. So in your text properties area, there's a little box that has TT and you put a check mark next to it and it changes to the list of TrueType fonts. And I'll show you that. And then we'll talk about the different things that you can do with the TrueType fonts as well, because they can be turned into stitches or they can be used as a cut file font. So we'll talk about that. And then purchased fonts. So when you purchased fonts, most often they come to you in individual files in your format for your embroidery machine. So like in this case here, you can see the letters, the A, B, C, D. These are files that are individual letters. And if you want to spell something, then you have to bring in each of the letters onto the screen for you, to create your text. And so I'm going to show you how you can use those as they are as individual files and a really quick and easy way to line them up. And then if you want to turn them into a keyboard font, it takes a little more time in the beginning, but once you actually create them as a keyboard font, then they just live in your fonts and you can type any word you want on your keyboard, just like your built-in font. So you're almost kind of turning it into a built-in font. So let's head over to our software and let's start with just the text tool and how to use it, and then we'll answer some questions and go for there. So I'm going to delete that text and we're just going to start from scratch here. Now, when you're using built-in fonts, there is a capital red T usually on your toolbar. Now remember, depending on which of our dime programs you own, your toolbar may look slightly different than mine, but you're looking for a capital letter T if you have built-in fonts into your software. Okay, and then you simply click it, and then it has the little letter A attached to my cursor now. And then I just click once on my blank workspace there, and then I can enter any of the, any words or text or whatever I want over here into the properties area. Okay, so if we're going to enter, let's just do like hello and click apply. And the built-in fonts, a couple of things here. So when you have a font selected and with the text tool, you can see I've got all these little shapes over here, right? So this is selected with my text tool. I've gone over this before, but it's worth reiterating. If you use your regular select tool to select text, you can see that I don't have as many shapes around. So if I click back to my text selection tool, it switches and I've got these little shapes. Now, what those little shapes allow me to do is just to edit my font right here on screen. And so I'm going to go to a different text so we can kind of see how we can use those. Okay, so here over in our text box, anytime you have text selected, you're going to get the properties that relate to your text. Okay, so I can enter my new text here. I can click on this window and it opens up my font list that I can choose from. So I can just switch to a different text here. And I can also select it from this drop down. So like if you know the exact name of the text that you want to go to, you can just click it and it'll change to that different font type. Now I'm going to do an undo because this is actually a very good example of some of these other options here. Now the space between, this is the kerning distance, and you can see we've got a gap between each of one of our letters. So if you put a negative number, so like let's start with -5, it'll push the letters closer together. And if I switch it to a positive number, let's go really a lot more. So I'm going to do a +10 on the spacing and click apply, and you can see it spreads them out. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my negative number. What do we have? -5. And that actually looks pretty good, but I maybe would increase it to a little bit more. So maybe a -7 if I want them all to touch. And then I still have a little bit of gap here. So that's where these individual shapes can help me. So these are the kerning option between individual letters. So you can see how I can move just the space between those two letters and I don't have to move everything along. Each one of these diamonds allow me to select this one shape and I can edit it. A lot of times, if have you ever seen, like that kind of storybook letter where the first one is really large, so you can select that one letter and make it larger. You can also rotate it if you'd like. Depends on what you're going for. So, and I think that's actually kind of cool, right? If I go back to just my regular select, all of these other shapes here, just do something different. So you can resize it right here. You can change the shape so that it's convex, concave, or both, just by stretching the text just how you want it. And I'm going to do my undo here, or actually let's do something different that we don't always see. A lot of times I use my undo a lot, and I have the shortcut key when I hover over it that says Control Z. So I can hover and then use, and that reminds me that Control Z will allow me to undo. But another thing that you can do, let's just go back, is with your text tool selected, you can do a right mouse click and then you can actually reset your font and it'll go back to the very beginning before you changed any of these settings. Okay, so you can reset it. Also, you notice that I had other options because I have the text tool selected. My right mouse click menu here is related to text, so I was able to reset it. If I break it up, it actually becomes individual objects rather than a text object. So if I go over here to my text tool and I push the plus, you can see how right now this is a text object, which means to me that I can manipulate it with all of these text tools. So I can go back and change my saying here to something other than hello. I could put, let's do hi y'all. I'm from the South. So, so that would be something that I might use. And so you can see that I can change that. And that's because it's a text object. Now I'm going to undo back to our hello here, and then let's choose our text selection here, and then I'm going to right mouse click and watch what happens when I break up text. When you break up text, it's seen as individual objects, and notice now when I click on one of them, I don't get text properties because it just behaves like an embroidery design that is not necessarily text, just a bunch of satin stitch to make up these letters. Okay, so here's where I would do undo and I could go back to my text object. And now if I right mouse click again with my text tool selected, you notice that we've got some other options. I can choose these envelopes. These are preset options for making these different text shape. So you could just click one and it'll do the work for you. And then you could still edit it if you want to exaggerate it a little bit more. If I right mouse click under here, we've got warp, spear, perspective, lower and upper. And these will do different things. This looks like it's got a bubble under it. And so it kind of looks three-dimensional here. And I think we notice it more if we have a a font that's not cursive. So we can kind of see that a little bit better. And then if I do a right mouse click, now warp. So these 4 features right here. So pay attention right here. These 4 features come from Word Art in Stitches. So I'm using a combination of features amongst my software. So depending on which features you own, you might not have every single one of these. Okay. So, but these are how you use them. So the wave puts your text on a wave, and I'm going to just copy and paste hello a couple of times so that we can see how it looks. Okay, you can see that that's on a wave there. If I right mouse click again, perspective upper and lower, you can see kind of does that Star Wars, kind of the text flying there, and the opposite is true whenever you choose the lower or the upper perspective. So kind of cool, right? And then I'm going to right mouse click again, and then we have these other options up here. So circle, spiral, monogram, path, and vertical. So these are just different ways to manipulate the text. You can also get to these settings over here. If I select my text, you can see under the type, I have the ability to change to the circle, spiral, monogram, path, or vertical. And you guys have seen probably us do this many times to put it on circle path. You can put your text on a spiral. Let me copy and paste this more because we need more things to spiral. And you'll see what we're doing here. So that's kind of cool, right? And all those little shapes allow you to manipulate the shape, so you can just adjust it however you like. And then the monogram option is, I don't know what this is going to do. We actually just should have 3 letters. I'm afraid to let it do it. So if I put it in monogram and have all of those text, it might make a mess. So I'm going to resize it here. So you can see here I've got 1 letter on the left that's smaller, 1 on the right that's smaller, and then the letter in the middle. And so if you have some normal letters, it's not necessarily the I, it would be in this format here. And then text on the path means that you can draw any shape and have it follow that path. So I'm going to do undo, 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 undo to get back to all of this hello text here and show you what I mean. And so let's do, actually, let's go back here, and let's do a lot of text, a lot of the hellos. And then I'm just going to change this to reset. So if I go back to my text tool and do reset text here, well, actually, I just want it back to normal, not the reset. Okay, there we go, this long line. So now a path is an artwork shape that you can make the text follow. So I'm going to just say, let's do a star probably will make a mess, but it'll be interesting. Let's do the heart and click and drag. And then if I select my text and the heart together, then I can put that on text on path. So then I click text on path, and you can see how it follows along my heart. And now I can move these around to make spaces. So I can add more hellos so that it goes further around my heart if I want, but I can also add, just like some spaces between them as well. So let's add a few more hellos. So I'm going to just say hello a couple more times and maybe a few more times. So copy, paste, and apply. And you can see how it's filled all the way in there. I'd maybe take 1 away, and then we can adjust our spacing. So, and that's exactly what I do. I just play around with this, watching, what happens. It's a heart, so I feel like it needs to be red. And so with your text tool selected, if I click on it, all of those little shapes, and this will allow me to kind of move this along the path here, so I don't have that definitely jumbled letters there in the middle. So, and then I can just kind of move these along to space that out to kind of close it in. So you just kind of play with it, adjust it to your liking. So pretty cool, right? So that is text on a path. Now you can do that with any of the built-in text, and you can actually use those features with TrueType text as well. Okay, so when you're manipulating text, um, make sure that you got your text tool selected so that when you do click on your text, you get all those shapes. Okay, if you have your regular tool selected, your regular select tool, you can see it's just going to select it as one entire object for you to adjust. Okay, so kind of cool, right? And I think we use our text more than any other feature available. Now, the monogram tool here, if you have this icon, again, not every program has every single icon that I have, but the monogram tool basically allows you just to automatically select that type monogram, and you can see how it went right to it in my properties, but I can certainly switch it back to normal if I want. So this is just almost like a shortcut to select the monogram layout, or this is your regular text layout. Okay. So now let's talk about something else about your text that I wanted to just point out. Here's a couple of tips. Okay. Now, when you hover over these yellow letters here, you'll see this menu fly out underneath where I have my cursor. So I'm going to hover over it again. You see that menu? It says available characters, and it tells me all of the letters, numbers, and special characters that have been digitized. It also has recommended size range. Okay, so this says from a 6 mm to a 3 mm for your recommended size. Now, I know a lot of you out there are not fans of millimeters. So if you want to switch to inches, you can just do a right mouse click right on your ruler bar here, and it gives you the shortcut to switch to inches. Okay. Now, when I hover over this, it says recommended height range is 0.24 to 1.18 inches. Now, you can resize. I'm going to go to the max here, 1.18. Okay. And the reason it gives you a range is because of the satin stitches. I'm going to go to a green color just so we can see this really well. So when you resize a satin stitch, like these column stitches here, they get wider as you drag your design larger. And so I'm going to make this much bigger so that you can see what happens here. So I'm going to go even larger. And at a certain point, these will be wider than your embroidery machine can stitch. And so you can see here on this B, um, and you can see it on the A as well, but it's really noticeable here because these stitches are not split. But the reason it looks like this is because that is a split satin. So even though the size recommended is to 1.18, that's, kind of the top size that you can go before it starts to split this satin stitch. And the reason it splits it is because your embroidery machine width can stitch at a max of 9-ish millimeters, depending on your machine model and brand. So in order to stitch this wide satin, it automatically stitches in the center, and it randomly stitches the that center tack down so that it doesn't look like a specific valley in your text. Okay. Now, if you don't want that, in Perfect Embroidery Pro, and I think in Word Art and Stitches too, you can actually adjust that column stitch here in your tabs. This column option allows you to change the split satin. So watch what happens here whenever I just say percent and click apply. I'm going to leave the default there. And now you can see over here on the A, you've got a split where it tacks it down in two different spots. So let's select that again and go back, and let's just look at other options. So this is doing a 30% split, and you can also do an absolute split depending on what you're looking for. And we were on random so that it split it in random spots, so it kind of blended the satins together. So here I'm just going to do a 50% and click apply. And you can see now I've just got that one down the center because it's splitting half of it. Now let's switch the font. So you're probably asking, why would you ever want that look? Well, it can actually create a really cool effect when you are working with a cursive font. So this Ontero font here is from Word Art and Stitches. And if I were to resize this much larger, let's go, like, say you wanted a 3-inch letter, and I'm just going to do the B so that we're only looking at one letter here. And there was a little notice that popped up that told me that it was, a really wide satin, which is good. And so watch if I go to that column option and then do the percent. I'm going to leave the 30 so it gives me two splits. And it actually makes a really cool effect in your satin stitch. So almost like almost an embossed line. So it can make a really awesome stitch, but some people don't really like that. And so if you choose the random option, it's going to still split the satin, but it's going to randomly choose where it tacks it down, and it'll kind of blend your satin stitches together so you don't have that exact line running down your text. So hopefully that makes sense there. So, okay, so that is a good start to the built-in font. So if you're new to our software and you're trying to learn how to manipulate fonts, or maybe you would learn something new if you have been using the fonts but haven't done some of that. So maybe that helps you. So let's answer some questions on that, and then we'll go on to TrueType Fonts, and we'll talk about I've even downloaded one so I could install it for you so you can see how it works. So let's just back up here and see if we've got any questions. And so I'll just kind of try to scroll through here and see what we've got. So Callie says she purchased fonts with Glyphs. Can you use them in the software? Yes, you can. So I would use my character map for that and that's actually a Windows feature. That's not specific to our software. So I usually open my character map and then I use those glyphs and then copy and paste them to our software, Callie. So that's a really good answer. And I have shown that in a past video. If we have time, I'll try to make sure I show that again. And then Mike says, what about BX font files? How are they different from TrueType fonts? So BX files is a file format that is specific to Embrilliance software. It is a native format that they use for purchasing fonts and being able to have them auto install. So our software is not made by Embrilliant, so we do not use and cannot read BX fonts. So great question. TrueType fonts are generally artwork type fonts. They're fonts that you would use like in your Adobe products or maybe in like Word or other tools that you have on your computer that use text. And so those TrueType fonts can be downloaded from the internet, and there's lots of options out there for even free ones if you're using them for personal use. So just make sure you pay attention to the license agreement if you are making anything that you're going to monetize from. So make sure that you are paying attention to that. But we'll see TrueType fonts coming up here in just a moment. How you install those and how they get used in the software. So, and then Catherine, thank you. Yes, it is so much easier for me to answer questions if you start it with a question mark. And so then that way for, people that are just commenting where they're watching from, which we always love to see, but I always like to make sure I answer those questions. So if you start your question with a few question marks, it just makes it a lot easier to pick it out of the chat, especially as it's moving like really, really quickly. So, and then Callie says, "Oh wow, I've been wondering if I could do the wave." And yes, we can. That is so true. So yeah, that's a feature built into WordArt and Stitches. So WordArt is a powerful text and lettering manipulating. So yeah, for sure. And then Reen had a really good point. Just playing in the software in conjunction with your lesson is a great way to learn. Absolutely. I agree. So for sure. And then Jennifer, dippity doo in the middle of my heart. I love that. That's so cute. I need that embroidered on something, Jennifer. That's adorable. So, all right, just seeing if we got other questions here. Yep. And so the Judy said, when using some fonts, the letters do not automatically get tie-offs. How do you look at each letter to see if the tie-off and fix those at the end of each word? So that's a really good question. So tie-offs usually happen depending on your settings. Like if your machine a lot of times will auto tie off if it's a trim and a tie off. But in the software, that's actually under your commands option. So I'll try to see if we've got time to show you that when I go back over there. And then where can I find the In the Hoop? So if you check our website, Cynthia, we have the In the Hoop software there. Also, check your local favorite brick and mortar. I really do appreciate, and I know they do too, when we support local. It gets harder and harder to run a brick and mortar business with all of the things that we can do online. So check your local dealer as well for any of these purchases. So for the software. And then the same thing, Cynthia said, where can she find Word Art and Stitches? So you can check our website if you don't have a local brick and mortar, but definitely check out your local shop as well. So, and then yes, all the software are separate. You don't have to own any particular one to own another one. So you certainly can own whichever one you like. And I'm assuming that you mean, Cynthia, is Word Art and Stitches and PEP, and no, it's not. They are two separate programs. They do have some overlapping features like your alignment tools. They do have your text tool in both, but Word Art has many more things that you can do with text, even more so than Perfect Embroidery Pro. Perfect Embroidery Pro, you can do about everything manually. And so, but Word Art has some really cool single click features. So did I get the notice at this for this show, but just stumbled into it? Oh, yes, you can watch later. So Carolyn, yes, it will live on our YouTube channel, Dime by OESD, and you can also access it from our Facebook page, but it will live under the category for software success. Great question. So best way to move words on path. So those little double triangles between the letters will allow you to scooch it along the path that you create. So yeah, just kind of play with all of those different little icons or handles, but the double triangles, the double blue ones, those usually are what I use to move it along path. So good question, Gail. So okay, so great questions. Okay, so let's head back over and answer some questions about the TrueType fonts. Okay, so and then is that DD use 51? So the absolute means that it's a specific value instead of a percentage. So like if you have a column stitch that's, say, I don't know, 7 inches or 7 millimeters in width, then a percentage would be, say, like 20% of the 7 millimeters. Where if you want an absolute value, like, 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, then you can enter like that exact value. So that's what the absolute is. Really good question. So you guys always have the best questions. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about TrueType fonts, and then this will also allow me to answer the question. I think that it was the Judy or Callie, maybe it was Callie that had the question about glyphs. And so I'll answer this here too. So let's do a new workspace and let's just choose my text tool again. If you want to use your TrueType font list, that is this TT. That stands for TrueType. So when I check that, notice this changes to black, and now I can't click on it. I have to select from my drop-down list. And if you are using fonts in any other program, you will recognize these fonts that are in your list in those other programs. Now, my list is probably different than yours because since you have control over TrueType fonts and you can download and change these, then you can have a list that's completely different than my list. Okay. But notice how when I select it, let's just do our hello again. And notice when I select here and I choose a different font option, then it is already digitized. So those are actually stitches. I'm going to go to the green again. I feel like we can see green a little bit better, but you can see that those are stitches, and they're stitches because this box is set to satin. So if I change this drop down list to artwork and click apply, Now, this is just an artwork text. There are no stitches here. So this I could use as a cut file. So if you have any of our programs that use the cutter feature, then you can create a cut file from the artwork fonts. If you have Perfect Embroidery Pro, you can export it as an artwork file for like a cut file, like an SVG or an FCM. So artwork files could be great for converting to embroidery, but they also can be used for cut files as well, or just designing with artwork. I use them for that sometimes as well. I also use artwork as notes. If I create a design on my own, I will write things in artwork that say, step 2, put fabric, step 3, mylar or something like that. So I actually use these artwork just as notes because they don't stitch. When I save the design and take it to my machine, I can make notes right on my design without having to worry about those stitching at my embroidery machine. Okay. So now let's talk about the other couple of options here. So the bling stroke and the bling fill, those are from cut and stitch. I can turn my text. Let me choose a text that's not connected for rhinestones here. So we can do this one. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because rhinestones take up a lot of space. Okay. Before I click this one. And then under here, the bling stroke is from cut and stitch. If you own cut and stitch software, you can have text that is made out of rhinestones. Now that was still really small. If I make it much larger, you can see that it's starting to look like our text again, because these little rhinestones have to make up the shape of the letter. And the bling fill is not just the outside. Stroke is the outside outline, and then fill is going to fill the shape with the rhinestones, okay? And even notice my E, it's still kind of cluttered. There. So if I'm able to go much bigger, the nice thing about rhinestones is it doesn't have to fit in my embroidery hoop. I can make it much larger than my machine because this is really just going to be cut out and the rhinestones raked in. So if you want to make rhinestone fonts, that is actually a feature that's built into cut and stitch software over here, the bling stroke and the bling fill. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to the artwork. And the text, I'm going to click apply. And so I also wanted to show you that you can actually apply fills to these as well. Okay. So this was a question that we got from someone this week. She said she saw a video. Let me go back here and go back to my built-in fonts here. And I'm going to go down. We have a really cute font in Word Art and Stitches called the Color Play font. Okay. So here's that font here. That font is all run stitches, and it's actually designed for use with variegated thread. So I'm going to just choose our medley variegated here and then just choose a color and click OK. And now you can see that the color is changing as the stitches run through that. And it's really a fun font. So someone said, I really want to make something with a variegated thread like this font, but I don't own this font. So I thought a really great way to create a font that looks similar. So I'm going to do my back button till I get to my artwork design here. And that's to add the wave fill, which is part of my Perfect Embroidery Pro software, and fill this shape. Okay. So now remember we said that TrueType text and text, they are text objects. Do you see where it says text there? Now this has a 0 right here because there are no stitches. This is just artwork. And remember we said if we right mouse click, we can break up the text so that it'll see it as individual objects. Now that I've broken that up, the software just sees this as some object that just happens to be shaped like an H. This is some object that just happens to be shaped like an E. But now that they are individual objects, I can actually apply my stitch settings to them. So in Perfect Embroidery Pro, I have this fill option that is a wave, and it's just run stitches. And now I just basically turn that into a fill that's a bunch of run stitches. And if I change this color to our variegated medley again, and let's choose, we'll do a different color this time. So you can see all of those stripes in there. Isn't that cool? Now, if I'm doing this myself, the one additional thing that I would do is I would select everything here, and let's watch our sequence view. You can see that I have one H, one E, two L's, and then the O. So if I copy and paste this, now I've got two copies of it, but I'm going to leave this second copy selected and then just turn it into a run stitch. And now it's going to give me a nice crisp edge around the outside. Okay. So just because you don't have a font doesn't mean that you might not be able to create it with some other tools that you have. Isn't that cool? I just had so much fun doing that. So I really enjoyed it. Let's do that again. In fact, I just loved it so much. So I'm here. I'm going to just say, we'll just do, I don't know, here I'll do my name this time and click apply. And for this, I'm going to use a cursive TrueType font. So let's go to our TrueType, and instead of satin, I want artwork, and I click apply. And then from my list here, I'm going to do a cursive font and click apply. And then let's just make it bigger so we can really see that wave stitch in there. And so now notice how all my stitch types here are grayed out, but when I right mouse click and break up the text, now you can see how they're activated, and I can just click to turn that into a fill stitch. So, and one thing I might do before I do that, notice how we have these overlapping areas where they touch. So let's do an undo and right mouse click under shaping, do weld. And then now I can apply my wave stitch, and I won't have that, the text overlap. You can see how it just continues one right into the other. And if we change that into a really fun variegated again, let's see what we've got here that maybe is different. Let's see what this one looks like. That's a beautiful color. Isn't that cool? I love that. And so I'm going to copy and paste. And again, I got two copies. So the second one, I just turned into a run stitch to give me that nice clean outside edge. So isn't that awesome? I just love that. Was so much fun. I just wanted to share with you guys. So you can use TrueType fonts as well to fill if you have the break up text option as well. Okay, so now let's talk about the glyphs whenever you install a font. Okay, so now TrueType fonts you can get from on the internet. If you search TrueType fonts, you can download them for free. And I've actually downloaded some to just show you this exact part here. And I have a folder where I just have some fonts saved. Okay. And then I've just downloaded a couple to choose from. I don't even remember what all these look like. But normally when you download a TrueType font, you'll unzip it. So I usually do my extract, or either you can right mouse click, okay? And then I'm going to open that folder that it extracted here down at the bottom. And then now this file right here, this is an OTF font. You can do an open type or a TrueType will work. So when I double click this, it brings up what all the is included, and I can kind of see what it looks like. And then I have this install option. And so you just click install, and then you get this little box that pops up. It actually popped up on my other screen, and it'll say it's done. And you can see how this is grayed out. Now this font name is called Buck Lane Script, and you can see how it says personal use. So make sure that you are only using this for personal use. Respect the artist. They went through the trouble of creating all of these. Okay, and then if we go back to our software here, I'm going to start a new workspace. Choose this is my built-in text here. So if I click TT, and then in my list here, I'm going to go look for Buck Lane. And hopefully I don't have to restart anything. There we go, Buck Lane Script. And then I'm just going to do, oh, that's a pretty A already. And this is embroidery. And so I'm just going to do, let's do another name. So I'm just going to do Mary here and click apply. Isn't that beautiful? Now here's see that big area right there? You can see that it took care of it, but it split it. So not every font is going to convert to embroidery perfectly. But it certainly gives you lots of options. And if I go from satin to artwork, this is what it looks like as artwork. You can see that tail looks much better as artwork. And then from here, we can break it up if we want to add our fill stitch or do whatever you want to. But as text, even as an artwork, I can manipulate it in the same way that we were manipulating our built-in fonts as well. So it just depends on what you want to do. Now, if you do have a font that have any of those glyphs with it, what I usually do is I search on Windows the character map. So I usually just put CHAR, and it will bring up my character map here. Okay. And then it looks like this. Let me bring it over to the screen here. So it looks like this, and you can select the fonts from the drop down list, and it's done by name. So let's see if this font that we're working with, this Buck Lane font, has any special characters. And if not, we'll use that one that we were just on. So let me go down here. Oh my gosh, got lots of fonts, right? And then you can see that it has all of these different things in here and these little special characters and things. So if there's something in here that you want to use that you don't have necessarily a keyboard stroke for, then you could select it here. And you can see some of these are other languages as well. I'm trying to look for something that maybe is just like a little swirly shape. So something like this. So these are little things that you can add to the ends or the edges of your letters. Okay. So let's just say we want one of these, and there's no way to type that on your keyboard, any of those. Okay. So I'm just going to select whichever one I want, click select, it fills in right here. And then I have the copy option. So if I copy it and then go back over to my software and paste, then, whoops, wrong button here. Let's go back here, paste. You can see that, and hopefully I know it's really small, but it did put it at the very end. So when I click apply, well, that one wasn't something that it applied to the font. So let me go to one I know. So let's go to this I Love Glitter here. And now let's go back to our character map. I should have just used this one to begin with. So, because I know that it has these fun little shapes. So here, it's got these little swoops and this little heart. I love this little heart here. So if I select this, select, and then copy, and then go over here and paste. Okay, and I just use my Control V to paste. And so we've got Mary, let's say Mary and Jack. So maybe you want to put like two names and that heart in between it. There we go. And then I click apply, and you can see I've got the space. So let's take out our space and click apply. And then now you've got this little centerpiece, which is one of the glyphs that came with the font collection. So use your character map, locate it, select it here, and then you can copy it and paste it here, because there's no way to put that keyboard, create that for that keyboard. Now, some fonts, there's a keyboard stroke that's tied to these glyphs, and you certainly can use that if you know them, but I just tend, generally use my character map there. So hopefully that answers your question. I think that was Callie that had that question as well. So, okay. So now that you've seen TrueType fonts, we've shown how to install them and use them in several different ways. Let's see if there are any questions on that. And then the last thing I want to show you is if you purchase fonts, how you can bring them in letter by letter or make them into a keyboard font. Okay, so let's see what we've got for questions before we do go on to that. So Jennifer says, Ashley, can you show at Crafts Obsessed how to save to USB? Yes, thank you, Jennifer. I could do that when I go back over there. So thank you for bringing that up. And so then Sheila says, I want to purchase cut and stitch, but I don't know what cutter I need to purchase. So Sheila, that's a great question. So you can actually purchase any cutter that you want to use, and there are many brands out there, and I'm sure there's lots of people that'll give you the opinions on their favorite brand. I wouldn't say one is better over the other because they all cut generally, but I would say that it really just do some research, and see which one you think is more user friendly. I would also see which one you have local support on that could help you. So maybe it's your sewing store that has it, or a crafting store that can offer you help. But there's lots of brands out there, and I love all of them. I use several of them. I have a Brother, a Silhouette, and a Caesar cutter, and they all are fantastic, and they all have different things, just like different brands of cars. So, and you can save to SVG format and other formats from cut and stitch. So any of the cutter that you get is going to work with cut and stitch formats because we've got the different options. So that's a great question. We love our cutters. They such a huge part of what we do with our sewing and embroidery these days. So with all the stitches and the embroidery fonts, what's the best stabilizer? So you're going to choose, Sheila, the stabilizer based on the fabric that you're stitching your design on. And that is true for any embroidery. You stabilize the fabric. And then that's your starting point. So, and you might need more or less depending on the density of the design, but there's no one answer for that as well. So, and Craft says she has a Janome 500. Okay, I'll show you how to save that. Thank you, Catherine, for pointing that out, and I will show you that whenever I head back over. And so, and then that was her question. And then Jennifer says, does the wave stitch belong to PEP only? So the wave stitch, actually, Jennifer, is in Word Art and Stitches. So great question. So wave is in Word Art and Stitches. And then, and yes, Angel says, can I do this in Special FX? Yes, Special FX has the built-in tool for text, and it also has the ability to manipulate TrueType fonts as well. And you can apply those specialty effects to the TrueType fonts. So Angel, yes, absolutely. If there's something specific that I showed that you want to know, then let me know. So great questions, everybody. I always love that. Okay, so let's go over and talk about saving to a USB, and then we're going to talk about bringing in fonts that you already own, and then how you can turn those into a keyboard font. So I'm going to start a new workspace here, and let's talk about first font files that you purchase. So I'm going to go over here and just look at a let's just say this one. I love this. So you guys know that we're part of the OESD family, and I absolutely love all the designs that I can get. So I'm going to do over here in my my design library area. I can actually do a right mouse click on any of these file folders and say show contents. You guys have seen me do this before. And it opens up a location to enter a opens up the location where the file is stored. Okay, so this is a file, a bunch of files that I have from our OESD design collection, and because I have Perfect Stitch Viewer, I can view them as little images. Now, this is displayed because I have Perfect Stitch Viewer. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And these are individual embroidery files. So if I double click one of them, it opens up in my software, and this is an embroidery file. Okay. So now, if Crafts Obsessed, to save your design to a USB stick, you're just going to choose File and Save As, okay? And then I'm adding a USB stick to my computer so that we can see exactly how to do that. So it actually just popped up. So all I need to do is choose the format for my embroidery machine where it says Save to Type. Okay, I can choose my machine format. You said you used JEF. And then I've selected my USB stick here from my list. And then when I click save, it's just going to save. Now you could give it a better name, but you can just save this right here. So I might call this A, and this is called To the Letter, is the alphabet collection. And then I just click save. And now that's on my USB stick to take to my embroidery machine. So it's just that simple. File, Save As, choose your format, select your USB stick, and then save. Okay. Now, so with the fonts that you purchase that are individual files, okay, let's say that you wanted to spell a word. So the easiest way to do that is to, from your design library, click and drag the letters onto the screen. Okay, so I'm going to do, let's do, I'm actually get rid of the A. Let's do Joy, not Q, O. I was about to bring the Q over. So Joy. Okay, now let's say that you have all these files on the screen, because when we purchase fonts, this is kind of how this is how they come in, individual files. Okay, now to easily do that, if I drag all of the letters onto the screen, and now I am purposely making this really bad. So no matter where you drag them, if you'll place the first letter and the last letter like a distance apart that say you want your design to be, select everything and use your alignment tool. So I'm going to use vertical center, that's 1 click, and then evenly distribute is 2 clicks. Now that was pretty easy, right? And now I just brought in those letters individually and lined them up perfectly. So I'm going to undo, and let's do that again. Okay, so now here I've clicked and dragged all the letters onto my screen from my design library here. And then I select everything, click and drag a box around it, 2 clicks, center align, distribute. Okay, so then now I've got my text ready to save, take it to my embroidery machine to stitch that out. Okay, so now that is one way that you can use built-in font options. Built-in, I'm sorry, files that you've purchased, you can use them in this manner because they are individual files. So when you purchase fonts, a lot of times they're individual files. Now, to save them, you want to save them under your C drive. So if I open up here, you can see this path at the top. So you want to save them in the folder called C, Dime, and Designs. Now, I've got a few more folders after that, but anything that you save in C, Dime, and Designs is going to show up down here in your design library where this little book is. And we're going to go up here to the top so you can see exactly that. So here's that designs folder, and you can see how mine starts with AccuQuilt and AJ Design. So if I go back to my folder, you can see AccuQuilt AJ Design. So everything that is, I'm going to make a list here, view a list. So everything that's stored in this folder, C Dime Designs, you can see over here in your design library. That's what we call that. And I've got many, 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 many folders, as you can see, that I have all kinds of designs saved in. Okay. Now, if you want to make a font, a keyboard font, and it comes in these individual files, if you have Perfect Embroidery Pro, you can create keyboard fonts from those files. So Perfect Embroidery Pro and Word Art and Stitches, actually. And it's a feature called our font editor. Okay, so it's under Tools and Font Editor. Font Editor is the feature that allows you to turn files into keyboard fonts. Okay, and here's how you use it. So when it opens up, this is what it looks like. You click to create new. It asks you to give it a name. And I name all the fonts that I create starting with my initials. That way I know that they're fonts that I created. And for this one, I'm going to use this handcrafted florals here, or handcrafted monograms. It's one of the OESD Shannon Roberts design collection. So I'm going to just say handcrafted. And then it's not a TrueType font. It's actually a stitch design. Now, if you have PEP, you can do TrueType or stitched. If you have Word Art, you can only do stitch designs. Okay, so I choose stitch designs. I select the folder, and it's asking me where are all these files located? So I've got these separated out in just one format. So I click that. It looks like it's empty, but it's not. Trust me. It's just selecting the folder. So say select folder and then click OK. And then it says right mouse click on the icon to import each of the stitch files. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. it brings up the font list here. And then each letter, I need to right mouse click and say import. And I'm going locate that file. So there's my A. I import my B. Okay. I import the C. And if I go up C and then open. Now this is very important. You'll just look at all these settings and you can make the recommended adjustments, but you can set your range, height. But this reference letter right here is very important. Whatever is right here needs to be the letter with the largest width. And usually it's the M or sometimes the W. And so you have to make that reference character here. So if you save your font partway through and you're testing it, you have to at least have that reference letter done. And notice when I scroll down, I now have lowercase letters. And so I right mouse click import, and then I'm going to scroll down to the lowercase a, which is right there, and open. Let's just do a few letters here. Import, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do just the A, B, C so we can see that. A, B, C, excuse me. And now I know this is tedious, but you spend the time to do this once and you don't have to do it over and over again. And then I'm just going to click save after I've added some letters. It's saved it. And then I'm just going to close this out. Now let's choose our text. Remember that was called AJ Handcrafted something, something, something. So let's scroll to the top here. And there's my AJ Handcrafted. And now if I just do ABC, because remember we didn't bring in all the letters, look how it created my little image for me. And when I click apply here, it's bringing in those letters, and I can actually manipulate this the same exact way that we manipulate our regular text. I can also set a different size, resize it, use my tools for manipulating the lettering as well. So isn't that cool? So font editor, tools and font editor, that is part of Perfect Embroidery Pro or Word Art and Stitches. And that's how you can bring in fonts that are individual files and turn them into a keyboard font. Okay. And so I think, let's see if we've got other questions over here before we sign off. Oh, while I'm here, let me show the automatic tie offs. I think that was the other thing there. So in your properties over here, and you've got this little tab that's commands. Now, not every software has this, but that's where you can choose your set your tie offs. And then if you turn on this commands button here, you can actually see where a tie off is set. So I'm going to turn off my 3D, and you can see here that I've got a tie off here and here on this one and this one here. So after each letter, this is the last thing that stitches, it ties off and trims. And then here, a tie off and trim, here, and a tie off and trim. So if you're getting a trim, you're getting a tie off as well. So just to make sure that I answered that question about the tie offs as well. So let's see if we have any last questions before we sign out here. So Joyce said, can you do some letters, save, and work on it later? Yes, absolutely, Joyce. That's what I just did. I only did ABC upper, ABC lower, and the M for the uppercase because that was my reference letter. So now you would just go to Tools and Font Editor, and then it will, so if I do that again, I think my screen just popped up, Tools and Font Editor, then you can see it's right where I left off. And if you were working on two different files, you could just do Open, and it would allow you to open a different text that you're working on. So just open the one that you're working on, it'll bring it up, and you can pick up right where you left off. That's a great question. So and then Shazia, I think that is. So I have Word Art and Stitches. After I upload letters, will I now work in my other modules? Yes. If you have Word Art and Stitches or PEP and you use this font editor, then those fonts are going to show up in your font list across all of your software. So another really great question as well. So just seeing what else we've got. So I have Word Art, uploaded letters. Yep. So I answered that one. And then let's see, Laura says, so the only way to see all of the designs at the same time if you own PEP. No, your letters, if that's what you mean, Laura. So no matter which program you have, the fonts, every time, if you've got fonts from 3 different programs, it puts them all under your text tool. So I think that's your question. If it's not, ask a more details, and I'll definitely make sure to answer. So just looking back here, see if I missed anything else. Depending on the type of stitches. So then thank you, but yes, I was wondering if I can use the type of stitches you used for variegated threads. Yes. So Angel, yes. So the run stitches, I love run stitches for variegated thread because I don't love the stripes that you get in the satin stitches or the column stitches. And yes, in Special FX, you can do the run stitches. There's your fill option for that is your Mylar. So your Mylar fill is just run stitches. So if you do that text and do a Mylar fill, you'll have a beautiful font that'll work great with variegated thread. So really good question. I love it. Love all of those font questions. So, okay, I think we've covered most everything. So I just wanted to mention a few different places that I got these features, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about next time. So the tools that I was using, I know this was a really robust episode, but fortunately you can go back and rewatch. But the features that I was using, the majority are the main features anyway. So the font editor is actually part of PEP and Word Art and Stitches. That's where you can take files and turn it into a keyboard font. And then your built-in fonts are in PEP, Word Art and Stitches, My Quilt Embellisher, Block Piecer, Vintage, Pam, In the Hoop, and Special Effects all have built-in text. And anytime you own any of those, or if you own 2 of those programs, it's going to put all of the fonts from each one all in one your folder for your under your text tool. So it'll put everything together. And then the breakup text feature that I used in conjunction with the TrueType font. So your TrueType fonts options are going to be part of PEP, Word Art and Stitches, Cut and Stitch, In the Hoop, and Special FX. And then I use the breakup text feature, which is part of PEP, Cut and Stitch, and Special FX to break up those letters to be able to apply those individual fills to. So hopefully that'll help you finding your features. If you don't have one of those features and you really want to, like I mentioned earlier when we had the question, check with your local brick and mortar for purchasing the software. And if not, we do have it on our site as well. And then, oh, wow, my text didn't change. So I thought I did change that to quilt label, but maybe I didn't save it. So in a couple of weeks, we are going to be talking about quilt labels. So the text is wrong and the date is wrong. And so I must have saved it didn't save it before I closed it out. So in 2 weeks, which I'm pretty sure is August the 19th, I'll be back here for another episode of Software Success. And we had another user request. So, and that was quilt labels, various ways to make quilt labels. And we'll also talk about micro fonts that you can use for quilt labels as well. So in 2 weeks, August the 19th, sorry about the typo there, we'll talk about making quilt labels with your software. And I've got a bunch of different ideas of how you can embellish quilt labels. I love this example where you can use a little quilt block even as an embellishment to your quilt label. So join me in a couple of weeks for that topic. So, and then again, like we said, I was using features from a lot of our different Dime software. And anytime you own several of them together, it just combines your features and makes your embroidery tool shed even more powerful. So if there's some features that you wish you had but you didn't, check with your favorite brick and mortar dealer. They can give you the best deal, but also it's place for you to go for additional support, and you can still take advantage of all of the free education and support that we have here from Dime by OESD. So, all right, guys, until we have another software success, I'll say bye for now, and thank you all for being here.